This is SSN
Story Studio Network.
Welcome to the Fatigue Fixer podcast. Have you ever wondered why you and most of the women you know seem tired so much of the time? Well, this is the podcast where we explore why. I'm here to help you better understand how your body works, whether we're talking about heavy, painful periods, why you have to pee all the time, or what the heck is happening to your body through perimenopause. And I'm not afraid to shed light on conversations that I feel we need to be having out in the open. Like, why are so many women struggling with irritability and anger, drinking more alcohol, and injecting our faces with Botox and fillers in an attempt to stay young? I'm your host, Dr. Sarah Vadeboncoeur. I'm a naturopathic doctor, mom, fatigue fixer, and loud and outspoken woman who's fascinated by the state of modern women's health and well-being. I know that you, yes, you, are incredible, and I want you to have the energy you need to share your unique gifts with the world because we are in desperate need of more female leadership. So join me for conversations that will help you feel less alone, more informed about all the things that might be draining your energy, and inspired to fix your fatigue and wake up every morning feeling rested and excited for the day ahead. I can't wait to share today's episode with you, so let's get into it. A few months ago, I was out with a friend for dinner. I ordered the same thing I always order there, fish tacos with half salad, half fries. When our food arrived, we noticed that the fries were cold. Now, old Sarah would not have said anything about these cold fries. She would have eaten them because she would have been way too worried about inconveniencing the waitress by sending them back. I really wasn't great at asking for what I wanted or using my voice. But 42-year-old Sarah isn't afraid to use her voice. I kindly let the server know that the fries were cold, and she immediately offered to get us a fresh batch. Easy peasy. Use your voice, ask for what you want, and you're rewarded with hot, crispy fries. And that's what my guest today is here to help us do. Because when we stay silent, bite our tongues, never ask for what we want, we end up eating cold fries. Or much worse. We're passing up that promotion or overdue raise. We're missing out on having deeper, more meaningful relationships. We're missing out on business and work opportunities. We're missing out on having partners and kids help out more. And essentially, we're missing out on using one of the most powerful tools we have to create a life we love, our voice. My guest today is Vivian Kaye. Vivian is a proud mother and female entrepreneur who focuses on supporting women, the importance of self-love, and building each other up. She is the founder of Kinky Curly Yaki, a hair extension company for Black women by a Black woman. Vivian is a proud business empowerment expert, keynote speaker, TV and podcast personality, and she radiates positivity in everything she does. Vivian, welcome to the Fatigue Fixer podcast.
Thank you. Great to be here.
I want to start by asking, have you always been the outspoken person that I have been watching on Instagram, or have you eaten your fair share of cold fries in the past?
I would say it was a mix of both, right? Because for me, I've got that intersectionality, right? So not only am I a woman, I'm also a Black woman. So there have been times in my life where I've had to eat the cold fries because, the system or society has taught me as a Black woman that, listen, you don't need to ruffle any feathers. You should just be happy to be here and to have these experiences and opportunities. So just eat the fries. But then I've always been outspoken, but then I've always sort of tempered it. But as I've gotten older, it's like, listen, life is too short to eat cold fries. My mother didn't come to this country in order for me to eat cold fries. She came here for me to have hot wedges and tighter tots and crinkle fries, hot and burning the roof of my mouth. So, as I've gotten older, I've been like, no, I'm always going to ask for the hot fries because why not?
Absolutely. And isn't it also true that when you ask for hot fries, or if I ask for hot fries, I think we also make it easier for other women to ask for hot fries, because
Absolutely.
a lot of times, because so many of us are afraid to say what we think or ask for what we want, if you're the one sending back the hot fry or the cold fries, you stand out. But if we all started doing it, it wouldn't seem like such a big deal.
It wouldn't be out of the norm, right? Because right now, if we were to ask for hot fries, you would be labeled a Karen, right?
Right.
I would be labeled an aggressive, angry Black woman.
Yes.
Right? But it's like, no, I just want what everyone else would want, which is what men would want, hot fries. They wouldn't, even if they brought men hot fries, or sorry.
Our fry analogies falling apart.
Fry analogies all over the place. So even if they were to bring men cold fries, and if a man said, you know what, these fries are cold, I need hot fries, they wouldn't even question it. They would be like apologizing, falling all over themselves, apologizing and bringing it back. For us, we're worried if they're going to spit in it, if they're just going to throw the fries in the microwave. Like we're conditioned to consider other people's feelings, whereas they are not conditioned that way. So, we don't care. We want hot fries.
We do, and we deserve them. So is that one of the big drivers, you think, that men are just not conditioned to be so worried about other people's feelings?
Oh, absolutely. They are conditioned to take risks, right? Like as children, the boys are running around and they're jumping off their dirt bikes and climbing trees and falling down and doing all the crazy things. Whereas with the little girls, we're like, no, you got to be careful. Okay, well, if little Billy does this, you got to tell him to stop it because that's your job. That's not our job. Why are we raising our girls up or to be responsible for boys, right? So they get to take all the risks. They get to do all the things. Meanwhile, we got to be their caretakers. We got to make sure that we're not taking the same risks, because if we do, then everything falls apart, right? So they need somebody to toe the line, right? So why is it our responsibility to do that? You also need to you also need to raise your boys to be careful and to maybe think about the risks that they're taking. Not only just us girls, because that's what we end up doing. We end up being grown women who overthink every single decision that we have to make, because we have to consider everyone else's feelings and how and the repercussions and the consequences, whereas they don't even think about that. They just do it.
Yeah. And I think we don't realize that small act of not sending the fries back, we create this issue where we don't have the confidence. And when there's a bigger thing that happens, if you can't even send the fries back, how are you going to push back when there's a problem at work or when something actually wrong happens? I remember a while back, I was at Subway and there was a man in front of me ordering, and he was being so direct with how these people were to make his sandwich. And I remember being like, kind of jarred by how aggressive he was. And then I caught myself and I'm like, it's his sandwich. He's allowed to ask for how he wasn't being rude, but he was being very direct. So I don't know if his name was Chad, but can we talk about Chad? This is how I actually first heard about you. One of our producers was like, you need to look up Vivian Kaye and what would Chad do? So tell us, what would Chad? Who is Chad? And how did you come up with this phrase?
Yeah, so Chad isn't a person. So I just want to get that straight. Chad's not a person. It's not meant to diminish anyone's accomplishment or to bash men. Chad for me is just like this archetype, right? It's the person who is pretty mediocre, but doing the big things in life, right? So, and we know in society, we see these mediocre people, and especially men who are doing these who are doing these big things, but they've got mediocre background and experiences and accomplishments, right? And so then I started, when I started my businesses, I would always have these these self-limiting thoughts that popped up into my head. Like, oh, you can't do this because you're a single mom and that's not the responsible thing to do. Or, you dropped out of college. You don't have the right to be, creating $1 million business because you don't have the background for it. So I needed something to counter those thoughts. So then I started to think, well, what would Chad do? Like, what would a mediocre white guy in my position do? And so then I started just applying it to everything. So then when I started to question myself, like, okay, well, should I do this? You know what? What would a mediocre white guy in my position do? He would do it. He wouldn't be questioning this, right? And so, and it's well known. Women, we will not do something, especially let's just talk about careers, for example. Mm-hmm. I saw this stat, I think it was a HP or Hewlett Packard stat that said that women will only apply for things if they've got 9 out of 10 of the qualifications or 10 out of 10 of the qualifications. Whereas men will apply if they only have like 40%. So if there's 10 things that you're supposed to do on the job, a woman will not apply for that job unless she can do 9 out of those 10 things. Whereas men, they see things and they're like, you know what? I am not remotely qualified, but I'm going to apply for it anyways. And they get the job.
I was going to say, and they get it.
They get it. And the only reason why they get it is not because they don't know or they know what they're doing. It's because they have the confidence to know that they can figure out the rest of the qualifications, right? And it's like, girl, if you already have 9, you can figure out that 10th. You can figure it out. Trust me. So for me, it's like I use what would Chad do? I put it in my bra, I put it in my purse, I put it in my back pocket. Whenever I start to question my qualifications, whenever I start to question my expertise, whenever I just need that boost of confidence and audacity, because that's really what it is. It's audacity. When I need that, I just ask myself, what would Chad do? And I've got that trademark because that's what Chad would do. But totally. You can use it. You could use Steve or Chris or whatever name you want to use. But really, again, it's not meant to bash men or diminish anyone's accomplishments. It's just meant to push you out of your comfort zone to do the big things in life. Because you know what? Like you said, we deserve the hot fries.
We do. And would you say, so there are very real societal things, like you mentioned being a Black woman, like there are very real things that could make it harder for a Black woman or a trans person or a disabled person or an obese person to, like, there are real things happening where people are oppressed and limited.
Right.
But we also put a lot of limitations on ourselves through some of these behaviors. Yes. So is that one of the ways that we can actually start to try to, it's not going to undo the societal stuff, but does it help to kind of like send a message that we actually can do these things? Like, how do you think about it?
Like, I think of it more like, if you keep suppressing yourself, right? Because society already does it for us. We don't need to help it.
No, it's true.
Right? Yeah. We don't need to help it. But when you're not fully expressing your ideas and your opinions and your wants and your needs and your emotions and all that stuff, it's going to lead to frustration. I don't know about you, but I've been reading a lot about women, and especially in their 40s, who are just angry.
Yes.
Just very, very angry. And they're being resentful and they're frustrated and they're raged, they're ragey, right?
Yeah.
And I would say it's because you're thinking about all the missed opportunities, all the times you didn't speak up, all the times that you bit your tongue, all the opportunities that you missed out on because you were so scared to send back those cold fries. And it piles up. Yeah. It piles up. So you have to start speaking your mind. Otherwise, it's going to start to take a physical toll on you.
I agree.
Yeah. It's a real thing.
It is. And that's why I wanted to have this conversation, because I think one of the prices that we pay, number one, is anger. I actually get really excited when I see an angry woman because I'm like, she's there. She gets it. Yep. She is starting to realize that all the shit that she's been dealing with for 40 plus years is a big pack of lies. Mm-hmm. And she's starting to, I see it as like an awakening. She's starting to wake up and realize that it doesn't have to be this way.
Yeah.
So if you are feeling that anger that Vivian just alluded to, it's not a bad thing. And again, part of it is we try to suppress ourselves so much. And we all know that that isn't an effective way to deal with anything. It's going to come out, which is why we
One
rage
way or
at
another.
PMS.
Yep.
It's going to come out. So I think one of the costs is anger of not expressing ourselves. The other cost is the energy that it takes to try to keep all this stuff in. What are some of the other costs that you're seeing in terms of what are women missing out on when they're not playing big or using their voice?
They're missing out on life.
Yeah.
Right? You're just missing out on life and all that it has to offer, right? Because when you're so busy being concerned about other people's feelings and other people's thoughts and their judgment and all that, all you're doing is pleasing them. Like, and it doesn't even really affect them, right? It affects you, right? It's you who suffers the mental toll, the physical toll, the emotional toll that it all takes from just not being your full self. So it's like when you start to feel like when you start to get angry and you hit that limit, it's because you realize that you've just been living a fraudulent life. Like you realize like, this isn't how I want to live. I don't want the cold fries. I want wedges and I want them piping hot. In fact, I don't even like French fries. I want salad. And you know what? I'm going to eat a big ass bowl of salad. I don't even care that it's got ranch dressing all over. Like you don't want to really get to that point, but sometimes, push comes to shove. You have to explode in order, like your cup has to overflow in order or to be empty. Let's go empty. A lot of food analogies here. Sometimes your cup has to be empty and dry and everyone else around you's cup's getting filled up and you're like, wait, I'm thirsty too, but you're so busy watching everybody else's cup get full. And eventually you get so thirsty and dehydrated and you don't know why. And then it turns out you're in a hospital with an IV to get...
But you're joking, but that happens.
Yeah.
Like there are serious physical, mental, and emotional tolls that happen when we suppress ourselves in these different ways.
Yeah.
So if someone's listening and realizing, and what you said is so powerful, like we are literally missing out on our life.
Yeah.
It's not just fries. It's literally your life is happening and you are missing a huge opportunity to show up fully in it, to have it be a beautiful experience for you. But also, and this is what I find so sad, is that when women play small and we keep ourselves small, we're also depriving the world of our gifts.
Of your greatness.
Like even, I know you have like a hair company. Like think of all the people who would have missed out on having that opportunity if you had not had the audacity to create your business.
Yeah. Like even in creating the hair company. And the reason why I created is because I needed something that looked quote unquote professional. So for Black women, what that means, and this is, 10 plus years ago, it's not, it's still like that now. Like in the States, they have to enact laws saying that Black people should be able to wear their hair as it grows out of their heads. Because before, when you had your short curly fro or locks or braids, it was deemed unprofessional.
Yeah.
So a lot of women started wearing protective hairstyles like wigs, weaves, and braids that looked like Caucasian hair. But I wanted something that looked like my hair, that looked like it could grow out of my hair. So I started a business with a line of textures that looked like my hair, that looked like our hair, the African diaspora. Right. And the reason why I did that is because I wanted Black women to show up with confidence wherever they were showing up in the world, because we have that extra layer of systemic barriers that we have to overcome on top of being a woman. So we've got being Black. So if you're so busy focused on my hair changing every single week, you're not focused on the work that I'm doing because you're so busy looking. Well, I don't understand. Last week your hair was short and this week it's long and still I don't understand. You know what, Karen? Focus on the report that you asked me to hand in and let me know what the feedback is on that. Stop focusing on my physical, right? Mm-hmm. And so, even in doing that, it's like, for me, it was just handing back power to people and women that looked like me, right? And I think, over time, I really got to stress this, like, the mental toll that it takes, that if you continuously bite your tongue, this is where all this anxiety is coming from. This is where depression comes from. This is where this great sense of dissatisfaction in life comes from not speaking up. And it starts with the little things, because if you're doing it with the little things, you're going to do it for the big things. So you got to start speaking up on the smallest things. If you're not confident, guess what? Confidence is a muscle. It's something that you got to continuously do in order to build that confident muscle. People ask me all the time, Viv, how do you get so confident? It's from doing these little things. It's from sending the fries back. It's from saying, no, I don't want fries. I want rice.
That's right.
Right.
And it's sending the fries back. And number one, either realizing it's not a big deal at all.
No.
Servers are there to help you get the food you want. So that was like a good, literally it was no big deal to send back the fries, and I got the result I wanted. But the second thing is that sometimes, and I think this is why we're so afraid, we don't get the response or the result we want. And we think that we're incapable of handling that.
Right.
So we don't even try because we think we're so weak that we can't handle hearing a no, or that we can't hear someone not being happy with us expressing ourselves.
Yeah. I would like to add a third thing.
Sure.
Is that people don't care about you.
It's true. It's so true. Thank you.
You think that server's thinking, oh my gosh, she's this, da, 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 da. That server, like, you are a blip.
So true.
You are meaningless in their life. You're putting way too much importance on yourself in someone else's world. So trust me, you ask for new fries, they say, okay, she wants new fries. That's it. Nobody's thinking about you like that. You are not that important.
It's so true. That's a great point. So how do we start? I know you said start small. How do we start doing big Chad things?
You start by doing the little things like I've been talking about, right?
Yeah.
You start by doing little things. If it's like, I actually, you know what? Here's a great example. I did this TikTok where I was redoing an email. So there was an email that had a bunch of, it was like, hey, hey, Steve, or hey, Chad, here's the report that you wanted, ! LOL, like a bunch of, extra things that we think we need to do in order to not come across as bitchy. But what I did was I took out all the exclamation marks, I took out all the pleases and I did a please and a thank you, but, took out all the extra things, the emojis and all that extra stuff that doesn't need to be said, and just sent it. It's like your little act of feminism or anti-feminism or whatever the case may be, right? Yeah. Anti-patriarchy or whatever, right? Is that I always think to myself, nice for what? Why do I need to be nice? Listen, there's a difference between being nice and being kind.
Yes.
I think we also need to establish there's a difference. Being nice sometimes doesn't mean you're being kind. It just means you're just doing the thing in order to get the thing. Right. Yeah. And sometimes that's necessary. But I think what we should focus on is being a kind person. Right. So there's a way to be direct and ask for your sandwich to be made a certain way by saying please and thank you at the end. But you can still be direct about it. Yeah. Right. And so I don't know if I answered your question.
You did. And you did. But even this is such a good example. Like, how many men are worried about their tone in an email?
They're
Probably
not.
Close to 0%.
They're not.
So this is why I want to talk about this, because this is literally every little thing we do. We have this added layer of mental work that we're doing. Do I sound rude? It is. It's mental gymnastics. And then we get to the end of the day and we're like, why am I so tired? I'm like, you literally have been doing mental gymnastics since the minute you woke up. Yep. Of course you're exhausted.
Yep.
You're exhausted.
Yep.
One of the things I'd love to get your thoughts on, and I think one of the things that I hear certainly from my colleagues and people I know who do have more of like a social media presence, is the fear of cancel culture. Like, do you see that as a reason why some people? I think there is, especially there are some like lightning rod topics which people are so afraid. Race being one issue for sure. Yeah. People are so afraid of saying the wrong thing that they just say nothing. And now there's this added perceived punishment that if you are in any way like in the public eye, that you can get canceled, whatever that means. Like, do you see that being an issue with the women that you work with?
To be honest, no. I really don't think there's such a thing as I don't really think there is such a thing as cancel culture, right? I think some people just always, I think hmm, like, there's some people that I've seen who just have this level of privilege that I could never have access to, right? And I know that if I said the same thing, it would be a whole thing. Like you know what? Honestly, I don't know how to answer this question.
Yeah, that's fair.
I don't know how to answer this question, but I will say, if you find yourself in a position where you've said something, you've put your foot in your mouth, and people come and correct you, and they do it in a kind manner, you should be open to correction. And you're allowed to be wrong. You're allowed to correct yourself, okay? And you're allowed to be like, you know what? I said this thing. I shouldn't have said this thing. Now I know why I shouldn't have said this thing. And in future, I will not say this thing. I will try my damnedest not to say this thing. And I think if you take that attitude towards everything, then you should be able to say what you want, right? But then there's some stances that it's just like, no, this is how I feel. And if you don't like it, you can go kick rocks with flip-flops. And I take that stance a lot, right? Because it's like, well, this is how I feel. This has been my experience. So this is why I'm saying why I say what I'm saying, right? But then there's also instances where I'm wrong. And I'm like, bro, I did not know that this was this. And you know what? Mea culpa. I am sorry. My bad. And we move on. So I think it really depends on your attitude, because for you to get canceled, you have to be a real asshole, right? That's what I think. You got to be a real ass, and you are not kind.
Yeah. And again, when you're so afraid of being canceled, you're probably saying very boring vanilla things.
Right.
Which we don't need more regurgitation of the same stuff. We need to be sharing. And I think this is where it's a big problem, is that we need to be having hard conversations. We need to be able to be talking about difficult subjects and difficult things happening in the world. And when we're so afraid of saying the wrong thing and being canceled, we don't talk about those important things. And I think in your stories the other day, you were talking about how some people are overly sensitive, which I agree with. Like
they are. Yeah.
When did we get this idea that we could waltz through life never having anyone that disagrees with us or upsets us or like trigger in quotation marks? Everyone gets triggered all the time.
Yeah. Here's the thing. If I'm also of the mind that and especially someone who's a public figure, I don't need to comment on everything. Mm-hmm. Okay. And for you to rely on the people you follow for their get ready with me outfits and recipes, for them to speak on every little subject that's happening in the world, I think you're putting that pressure on the wrong people. The people you need to put that pressure on are the politicians, the people we vote into power to make laws, to do the things. Because the girl doing the Amazon haul is not going to change things. She may, if she has it in her wheelhouse to speak to it, because that's the thing. It's damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Absolutely.
But you cannot damn people for not speaking on everything. They can't. You can't possibly have the capacity. They don't have the bandwidth. If anything, why aren't you saying something? Why aren't you using your energy to speak out about it? Why are you coming to me? I can't speak on everything. I got my own problems. And this is not to say that, the world problems are not my problem. But you cannot rely on me to speak about everything. I can't. I am a human being. I don't have the capacity. I don't have that kind of power. You need to put that pressure on the people in power, the people writing the laws, the people who are using us as scapegoats. Those are the people you need to focus on.
Yeah. And I think about this a lot because I'm someone who it's harder for me to keep my mouth shut than it is for me to talk. So I think the flip side of having chaudacity and using your voice is also knowing when to shut the hell up.
Having a sense of discernment is very important.
It is. And so I think that is an important part. And yes, we should not be taking our advice from influencers on topics that they have no experience or no lived, experience or expertise in. So what is the world missing out on when we So we know that we're missing out on our life. What are some of the things that you think like the world is missing out on when we don't hear from Black women or when we don't hear from women in general? What are some of the things that we could and should be? And I don't like to should because we get shoulded all the time, but what could we be contributing maybe that we're not?
Everything.
Yeah.
Like so much, like, you know, I feel like there's so much happening in the world that I'm like, man, if they just had a woman's input, this would not be happening. Right. I just think that, you know, we're missing out on like the things like the deeper connections, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the trust. And like there's just so much. There wouldn't be this many angry people. Like there'd just be a lot more communication. Mm-hmm. Instead of people focused on what they think people should do, they would be focused on what people do and not just their talking and their actual actions or something. I don't know. I just think that we're just missing a lot of authentic people. And, you know, but even then, sometimes I think, wow, there's a lot of authenticity coming out, you know, as we speak. Like there's a lot of people that are doing and saying things that you're like, wow, is that how you really feel? And it's interesting, but then it's like, okay, but now I know what side to put you on. Now I know where you stand. So now I'm just going to put you over there and ignore you and focus on the people who are values aligned and missions aligned and who I admire and want to, you know, and want to get more of them out in the world. Right. So I think, you know, people who are constantly suppressing their true selves, you're leaving so much more that could be given to the world on the table when you're not your authentic self. Mm-hmm.
Do you have any like regular practices or things that you do to keep yourself feeling confident and audacious?
What do I do to keep myself confident and audacious? I just do these little random acts of, I don't want to call it rebellion because it's not rebellion. It's just little acts of Vivian, right? Like just doing things like, I don't know, talking about how I really feel. Like, so let's just say over the past couple of weeks, I have been depressed. Like I have just been down in the dumps. And it's just because, you know, there's a bunch of things going on in my life that I have no control over. Right. And it's hard trying to move within the parameters of the consequences that I've been dealt with. Right. And so I haven't shied away from being like, listen, I am not myself. I am going through this period where I don't know what the hell is going on and I'm not okay. And so I feel like being vulnerable and sharing that gives, because my DMs have been filled with, Viv, we support you. I'm feeling the same way. I don't know what it is, but you know, we'll be here for you when we come back or when you come back. But that is a confidence movement in itself, right? Because I'm not shying away from the fact that I'm not, you know, the regular Viv.
Yeah.
I'm the subdued Viv.
Yeah.
But, you know, but she's still here. She just needs a minute. She needs to just have a seat and take a break. And then I'll be back to my regular shenanigans and foolishness. Right. Yeah. So I think even doing those little acts of defiance of not being, you know, a woman that's going to pretend that everything's okay. Nah, girl, nothing's okay.
Yeah.
Nothing is okay.
Yeah.
But I'm not afraid to tell you that nothing's okay. Okay. Yeah. So,
which I think is probably so healing for you, but also, and this is the other thing, and I've had similar experiences, whenever I share something more personal and authentic, it allows people to actually see you.
Yes.
And when people can see you, they can actually connect with you.
Yeah.
Right? How often do we get asked, how are you doing? And we reply, I'm fine, I'm good,
meanwhile, you look like the meme where the dog's sitting in the fire saying, I'm fine, but everything around you's on fire. Yeah.
There's steam coming out of my ears, but I'm great. I'm great.
Fine. Yeah.
I'm fine.
What's wrong with not being fine?
Right. But part of that is, again, I think we've been so conditioned to want to keep other people comfortable that we are worried that if we say, I'm not fine, we're now putting that person in a position where they have to respond. And again, It's like we don't even trust our people to know how to hold, I'm not okay.
Right. Listen, I think we need to find balance. So there's, okay, you if you sit there and say, I'm fine when everything's on fire. But then there's the opposite of that, which is like the dumping, like the trauma dumping and you're just, trauma soup, right? No, there's balance. You could just say, you know what? If someone you trust, right? So that's the key. It's got to be someone you trust. So you can't just say this to anyone. If someone you trust says, how are you? You say, you know what? I've had better days. I'm really struggling right now. But talking to you makes me feel better, makes me feel like it's going to be okay. Then guess what? That other person is not going to feel like you're just dumping everything on them. They're like, wow, this person trusts me enough to be vulnerable. Let me lend them an ear, even if it's just for, just for that intro. And then we go about our business. At least they feel like somebody cares about them. Right. So let's find some balance here. And also, you don't need to call 59 of your girlfriends to talk about the problem. If you do that, you already know the answer. You just looking for somebody to confirm your wrong answer or your right answer or whatever it is.
Yeah. And maybe you need a therapist.
And maybe you need a therapist.
Maybe you need a
therapist.
Yeah. I think we are really missing out on the opportunity to connect with people, right?
Yes.
When we don't share how we really feel. And the other thing that I find fascinating is that most people, if they are true trusted people in your life, they want to help.
Yes.
And you're depriving them of that opportunity when you pretend to be fine and you're not. Right? Think of how good you feel when you are able to help someone you love. Don't take that opportunity away from other people.
That's what other people are there for.
Yes. Yes.
They're not decoration.
Yeah.
It's a give and take. It should be a give and take relationship.
Yeah. Vivian, thank you so much for this conversation. If this is the tone down, Vivian, I don't even know. I don't even know if I can handle the full. No,
this is Vivian on her way back up. She's coming back
We've
up
caught her
for air.
On the upswing.
Yes, we're on the upswing, and it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So if you're listening to today's episode, I want you to keep in mind that biting your tongue and not saying how you feel is exhausting. It is also literally pushing away the people that you love when you, like Vivian said, when you don't tell them how you're actually feeling. And it's also holding you back from getting what you want. And like Vivian said, you're missing out on your life when you don't say what you really want. So next time someone serves you cold fries, I want you to remember, what would Chad do? Because I'm pretty sure Chad would not settle for cold fries, and neither should you. I will see you back here in a couple weeks. Bye, everybody. Thanks for spending your precious time with me today. If you enjoyed today's episode, it would mean so much to me if you would take a moment to leave us a rating and review, and share this episode with a friend who needs to hear it. If you're ready to get more insight into what's making you tired, find out which of the 5 most common types of fatigue you're dealing with by taking my fatigue fingerprint quiz at fatiguefixer.ca/quiz. Are you dealing with frazzled fatigue, where your body's exhausted but your brain won't shut up? Or maybe you're more of the drained fatigue type, where no matter how much sleep you get, you struggle to get up in the morning. Just take my fatigue fingerprint quiz and you'll have more insight into which labs to ask your doctor for and what habits and practices are best for fixing your type of fatigue. Find the quiz at fatiguefixer.ca/quiz. Because let's face it, accepting perpetual exhaustion as the norm, that's just not going to fly around here. Last but not least, I want to thank Jen Hudson and Mike Trutler over at Story Studio Network for bringing these conversations to life. I'll see you right back here in 2 weeks. Bye.